Hi there and welcome. You're listening to a Most Mundane Memoir with me, Jake Donnelly. Now, because this is Chapter 1, I'm going to have to explain what it is I'm doing and why it is I'm doing it. So, I'm 34 years old and trying to get back into the sports broadcasting industry. And like everybody in the industry, I, right now, am sending out application after application after applications, just what you do in this industry. And last week, I actually applied for a position that was called a storyteller position. And the parameters for that application were really simple. Just tell a story between 15 to 60 seconds long. That's it. So I decided to tell the story about the first time I met Sean Killeen, one of the best Division III baseball players of all time, who happened to be my age, who happened to be my grade, and who happened to play my position at the same school I went to. In fact, this guy was so good, I didn't even make it onto the team my freshman year. I got cut. Eventually, I did make it my sophomore year, and then junior year, we won the national championship. So things worked out pretty well for me, despite almost never playing in college, and with good reason. Sean Killeen was, and probably to this day, is a much, and I mean much, better baseball player than I am. But in the process of doing that application, maybe aided by a combination of a 22-hour drive from Fort Myers, Florida to Westerly, Rhode Island, as well as binge watching pretty much every clip of Norm Macdonald on YouTube in the wake of Norm Macdonald's death, an epiphany hit me. If I've had to apply over and over and over again throughout my career in sports broadcasting and been rejected, that is, from almost every single place I've applied to, and yet asked back by every single place that I've worked at, there's got to be a disconnect. And what could that disconnect possibly be? If I'm always asked back to these positions, but am almost never hired to these positions, if the front offices always want me to return, if the audience, if the viewers always want me to return, but nobody wants to hire me, what's the problem? I think I found it. A spark of the divine, or what have you, granted to me by too much Norm Macdonald watching. You see, there's good news and bad news. The good news is that I have great and, in fact, compelling stories. The problem is, the bad news is I'm the one telling them. In other words, the good news is I've got interesting stuff to say. The bad news is my personality. I'm the one that's telling them. So how to rectify this situation? How to get you fine folks the stories in the best way possible? Well, just tell you the stories. Don't waste a ton of time doing everything else. Don't go into tangents talking about my love of Norm Macdonald and the fact that one of my favorite things in the world is watching Dirty Work and having Norm just, talk about the Saigon whore who bit, well, it was Chris Farley's character's nose off. But you get where I'm going with this. Don't do that stuff. So I'm going to stop. Without much further ado, Chapter 1 of a Most Mundane Memoir with me, Jake Donnelly, the Derek Lowe WTF Interview. So I went to Syracuse University's Newhouse School of Public Communications. Yeah, I mean, the professors there were great. The stuff I learned there was absolutely necessary. Maybe their networking isn't as great as they told everybody it was going to be, but it was absolutely worthwhile to go to Newhouse. And the best thing about Newhouse is that they made you do 2 different internships. One in the Syracuse area and then another in the Washington, D.C. area. The news people, they got something with the regular news channels down in D.C. Most of those people went to Capitol Hill and did their thing over there. But the sports people could do sports stuff. So my internship was actually with WFED, the flagship sports radio station connected to WTOP down in DC. And if you've ever spent time down there, you know the call letters WTOP. And if you like the sports down there, you know the call letters WFED. Most of my job that summer was going to Washington Castles matches. That's Castles with a K. That was Washington, D.C.'s World Team Tennis team. And I got to interview people like the Williams sisters, Anna Kournikova, Martina Hingis, with an interesting mark on her neck. Maybe I'll tell that story at one time. But while I did do a bunch of stuff with the Washington Castles, my favorite part of that summer was going and getting audio at Washington Nationals games. When they sent me to Nationals Park, that was my jam, as the kids say. I mean, I was a baseball player. I played it my entire life. I played in college. I bullpen caught for half a summer in the minor leagues. Like, I know baseball, right? Got that down. So I go, and the Nationals are playing. This is late July, like maybe the 29th or so. And the Nationals are playing host to the Atlanta Braves. It's the first game of the series. But my boss tells me, I want you to get audio from tomorrow night's starting pitcher. Tomorrow night's starting pitcher for the visiting team. Because he already got it for the home team. He doesn't want to talk to the other guys, right? He wants the new intern to do the easy one, get the good sound from tomorrow night's starting pitcher so we can use it before the broadcast tomorrow night. The starting pitcher for the Atlanta Braves in that next day's game, or next night's game, I should say, Derek Lowe. I mean, I know Derek Lowe. I'm from New England. Look at the picture behind you guys. You should know, if you know anything about sports, what that picture is behind you and that I'm a New England boy. So here's Derek Lowe, Mr. No-hitter, Derek Lowe, Mr. Crotch chop against the Oakland A's, Derek Lowe, Mr. Clinching and make that winning pitcher of every clinching game in the Red Sox 2004 World Series title run. I know Derek Lowe. That is the guy that my boss wants me to get audio from. I can do that. And right as I'm about to go, take my notebook, take my recorder down to the visiting team's locker room that I still don't actually know where it is yet. But before I'm about to do that and head out, my boss hands me his recorder, turns it on for me and says, go downstairs, go get the audio. I'm like, okay. I mean, I've got my own recorder, but he said, no, use his. All right, boss man, you got it. Hey, Jake, do you need to know any background on Derek Lowe? Nah, boss man, I got this. Don't worry about it. All right. So I go down there and I open the door to the visiting team locker room, and Derek Lowe is like 10 feet in front of me. He's got his jersey on, but no pants. He's just in his sliders. I go up to him. I say, hey, Mr. Lowe, I'm Jake Donnelly. He cuts me off, tells me I'm Derek. All right. Sure thing, Mr. Lowe. I mean, Derek. Can I get some audio from you? I promise it won't take more than about 10 minutes, and then I'll leave you be for the rest of the day. He said, absolutely. Just let me put my pants on. That's a pretty simple request, one I could absolutely help him out with. Not like that, but, wait on until he's ready for. So he's getting his pants on. He starts hiking up, the right leg, and I look at my recorder, and the recorder is no longer on. It's just simply not working. So I hit the power button, I slide it on, and it doesn't turn on. Now Lowe's got the left leg starting to come up. I'm just looking like all I've got is enough time for that belt buckle to get done before we've got ourselves an issue here. So now I check the back, the batteries are good, I put it back in and look at the front, and it's not working. So now Lowe's buckled up and he's just staring down at me. When I mean staring down, I'm 6'1", actually a little bit taller, but I'm definitely not 6'2", and although I am a guy, I don't need to steal those inches there, okay? I'm 6'1", I'm good. But Derek Lowe towers over me. It's why he was such a good sinker baller. He had that great sinker, and then he could break it up, come on the back door with the breaking ball. It's like Derek Lowe was a good pitcher, in large part thanks to the fact that he was a large human being. So now I've got this guy, and I can see him just towering over me, starting to give me this side eye because he's looking at this jackass of an intern who's wearing a gaudy national championship ring because I wanted to feel comfortable, but now I'm nervous and I'm starting to sweat and everything is starting to come down on me. And for those of you that don't know, what's a good way to phrase this? I'm very good at overcoming. I'm very good at adapting. I'm very good at improvising. However, I might just have like a little teensy weensy bit of an anger issue. Maybe just a bit. So all of that stuff is happening. Here I am, nervous because it's my first day, and I'm supposed to be interviewing Derek Lowe, a guy that I know everything about. I can't mess this interview up, and my recorder is not working. Of course, it's not mine, it's my boss's. I had mine. I know how mine works, but I had to use my boss's, which, I mean, grand scheme of things, you should know how a recorder works. Even if you're just there as an intern on his first interview, you should know how the recorder works. So all these thoughts are going through my head, and that recorder's still not turning on. So as I'm starting to sweat, as my face is going as red as this shirt, I just, I go, what the fuck? But not like that. In fact, not at all like that. In fact, it was the loud part soft and the soft part loud. So it came out as, what the fuck? And of course, Derek Lowe is right there. Hears me go, what the fuck? And responds, I've been interviewed in almost every single clubhouse in the United States throughout Major League Baseball, and that is by far the best first question anybody has ever asked me in an interview. Thank you, Mr. Derek Lowe. The perfect thing to say at the perfect time, as I, self-confessed, in Derek Lowe's words, mental midget, if you remember that scandal, but an absolute mental midget, losing it in front of Derek Lowe to the point where I swore in front of this guy while trying to get a recorder on. I swore, said, what the fuck, right in front of Derek Lowe, simply because the recorder wasn't working. And here he was, he responded perfectly. He reached out that metaphorical helping hand at one of my worst moments when I am about to just lose my cool because I'm an idiot. And there's Derek Lowe responding to the worst question somebody could possibly ask him that he just met in the best possible way. This guy who could have been the biggest douchebag, the biggest asshole, who could have literally big leagued me at this point in time, helps out yours truly, this tub of goo, and pulls me out of the rut. And of course, right after he said that, what happened? The recorder turned on. Everything started working. I asked him why he had such an issue walking guys in the previous start. I mentioned how it looked like actually that his arm slot was a little bit off. He gave me a look like, who the hell are you? Hey, I got this for a reason. I was a catcher in college. All I do is catch because the starting guy hit all the time. I thought maybe your mechanics were a little bit off. We had ourselves a great discussion. It lasted a little bit longer after the recorder came off, and it was great. But what was the very first question I asked in my broadcasting career when I, a New England boy who grew up watching the Boston Red Sox every single game, what was the very first question that I asked Derek Lowe? What the fuck? So yeah, that was my very first professional interview, the Derek Lowe WTF interview. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed Chapter 1 of A Most Mundane Memoir with me, Jake Donnelly. Remember to tune in for Chapter 2. Chapter 2, how I almost killed a Jonas brother in a game of softball. Yeah, now that is a teaser. Thank you again, folks, for listening to Chapter 1 of A Most Mundane Memoir with me, Jake Donnelly, the Derek Lowe WTF interview. See you in Chapter 2.